is hit the -1 button. So for most of you, you're going to have to hit that shift button. So you should find a shift button up in the top left-hand corner. That means right now on your calculator. Because your sine, cosine, tangent, all those to the negative first, are in a different color. So if you look on your calculator, up here in the top left-hand corner, whatever this shift button is, some of them say second, it's the same thing. That color matches whatever that color is. So if this is an orange color, that should be orange. If this is a blue color, that should be blue. They should match. So what that means is before you can match this, you have to match this. Okay? So, right now on your screen, you need to match shift or second, whatever it is. Now match that tangent, and you should get tangent to the negative first to pop up on your screen. Now type in your 0.5. And then all you gotta do is hit equal. And you should have a decimal. So we got 26.5650518. Now, I said I didn't want a decimal, I wanted a whole number. So if I take this 26.5 and I round it to the nearest whole number, what am I going to get? 27. I'm going to get 27. So that's all you got to do. So I'm going to hit, now in my case, I'm going to hit shift, tan to the negative first, then my 0.5 equals, and it's going to end up rounding to 27 degrees. That's what I'm looking for. And you got to do that same thing every time. Now the only difference would be if yours had to use the second button. So I'm hitting that shift, and again, it could be sine to the negative first, cosine to the negative first, whatever it is. And then my decimal.
Ooh, I have a question.
Uh-huh.
For those, like, if we go home, the homework today, will our laptop try this?
It should. If you pull up your calculator right now on your laptop, you should be able to change it to scientific mode.
Okay, I see it.
And it should have one on there. Because I've used them several years ago for some of them. So it should have one regardless. So you should never be without one, even if you don't have mine. Okay? So let's try another one. So let's try number 17. So again, we've got to do everything according to this angle. So if we do it according to this angle, what is my 3?
The opposite?
That is the opposite, so that's my O. What is the 10?
The A? No, the hypotenuse.
That's the hypotenuse. So this time I've got O and I've got H. So which fraction is that going to be?
Sine.
That's going to be the sine. So this time I've got the sine of X is going to equal what when I fill in my fraction?
3/10.
Okay, it's going to be 3/10. So now I need to change that to a decimal, because we don't want to use a fraction, we want to use a decimal. So it's going to be sine of X equals, okay, it's just going to be 0.3. I I don't need all 4 places because that's not my final answer. Now I'm ready to do all that stuff that I did a while ago to get the final whole number. So remember, do it just like we did before. So you're going to hit that shift. This time you're going to hit sign to the negative first. And then hit that 0.3 equals.
17.
And now you should round it to the nearest whole number. And we got what? 17. Should equal 17 degrees. So if you hit those same keys every time, it's just going to be a different sine, cosine, or tangent button, depending on which one that you're going to be using. Did everybody get 17? Because if you're not, then something's going wrong. It's either you're hitting the wrong button, you got the wrong fraction to start with, something. Or maybe you're rounding it wrong. Okay, but is this making sense? Okay. Then let's see what you can do with number 18. So here's my angle. So from number 18, from the angle of mark, that question mark, label your sides. Fill it into whichever fraction that they've given you. And see if you can change that into a whole number. Because I need to know what whole number that's going to be. You need to write down that shift 10 to the negative first and all that stuff every time. Write it down. Nobody's stopping you. You need it just because your neighbor doesn't, that's not a problem.
Number 17 and 17, right?
Yes.
Okay.
I had to stop, but that's what we just did. Now this is an actual degree, so make sure you put degrees on there. Don't just say what your answer is. Because this is actually a degree. So put that little degree symbol on your answer. Okay, I think most of you had it. So what was the answer to number 18?
35.
35 degrees. So we should have gotten 35 degrees when we worked this one out. Is there anybody who did not get 35? Even if you're at home, if you still are having problems, I need to know. So everybody's okay? Okay, let's do one more before I switch it over. So let's go ahead and do number 19. So go ahead and let's do number 19 real quick. And then we're going to switch it over in just a second. So try this one. So yes, when you divide, you got to use the whole thing, unless it comes out to be some big old long decimal that fills up your whole entire screen. Okay, so if it's a decimal that just has 3 or 4 places, yes, use the whole decimal. But like I said, if it's one that takes up 15 places, then we can work with that. Okay, most of you I think are done or about to be done. Okay, what did we get? We should have gotten 39 degrees. So did everybody get 39? Okay. Now, I'm going to skip down here to 21. Now, what is the difference between number 21 and the number 19 that you can see right here on the screen? 21 has all 3 sides, where number 19 only had 2 sides.
That makes it easier, right?
Well, it depends. The thing with number 21 is that you can use any of the fractions. Whereas in number 19, you had to use one fraction. Because what fraction did you have to use on number 19? Okay, you had to use tangent. You didn't have an option. Whereas if you look at number 21 here, I'm going to have all 3 sides. So I could use sine, I could use cosine, I can use tangent, I can use any of them. But here's the thing, all 3 of them are going to have the same answer. It doesn't matter what I use. So you may decide to use sine, whereas, somebody else may decide to use cosine, and somebody else may decide to use tangent, but you all 3 better have the same answer. So I'm not telling you what to use anymore. I'm allowing you to pick what you want to use now. But you better have the same answer as everybody else in the room. Okay, do you understand what I'm saying? You have the freedom now to pick which one of the 3 fractions you want to use. But you better have the same answer as everybody else. So here's what I want to do right now. I want to just show you what's going to happen. So, let's do this. For the classroom, if you're at home, I want everybody at home online to use sum. Okay? If you are on this side, on these 3 rows, I want you to use cosine. Okay? So if you're on this side of the room, these 3, I want you to use cosine. And if you're on those 3, I want you to use tangent. So online is sum, these 3 are cosine, and these 3 are tangent. Now what you're going to find out is that all 3 of you better have the same answer. So if these 3 don't have the same answer as these 3, and y'all don't have the same answer as the ones online, then somebody's messed up.
Can you still solve it the same way we did earlier?
Yes.
Okay.
You will still solve it the exact same way. It's just now you have the freedom to pick what fraction you want to use. But I've told you what to use in this problem. For the demonstration purposes of, I want you to understand that everybody's got to have the same answer. So online is using sine in this problem. These 3 are using cosine, and those 3 are using tangent. But yet everybody should come out with the exact same answer.
What's for H, right?
Cosine, yes. So once you've labeled it, you should know what your fraction is. And I gave those fractions to you yesterday. And then treat it the exact same way as the first four that we just worked, but yet everybody's using a different one. So that way everybody will come out with the exact same answer in the end. Well, what you can do in that instance is you're using tan to the negative part, right? So you can hit shift your tan to the negative part, and now since your calculator will do a fraction, type in your fraction, and that way you won't have to do the decimal. Now let me inform you, your calculators will do fractions. So if you get a big long decimal, you can go back and type in the fraction instead of doing the decimal form. If you understand what I'm trying to tell you. So, for instance, if I do this problem, and let's say I'm doing 72 over 75. I don't know, I'm just picking something. And let's say this decimal comes out to be a decimal that fills up my whole screen. Okay? I don't want to write that big long decimal down on my paper. But what I can do is I can type that whole thing into my calculator. And I can do it by using the fraction. I don't have to type it in. Instead of me typing in like I did up here earlier, I'm typing in 0.5. Will my calculator do the fraction of 25 over 50? Your calculator has a fraction button. So you can do shift, tan to the negative first, and then put in the fraction 25 over 50, and hit equals, and you should get the exact same answer. So if you try that, you can kind of bypass the decimal stage and just type in the entire fraction at one time. That's just one way to eliminate the big long decimal. So I don't have to type in this and get a decimal and then go back and retype it back in. I can just simply take this out and type in the original fraction into my problem all at one time. And it should tell me that answer. So you might want to try that on the next one and see if it actually works for you. So has everybody who was supposed to do theirs finished working there? So let's see what happens. So on 1, somebody tell me on 21, what did you get when you worked sine? When you did sine, what did you get as your whole number? Because I have a whole screen of people sitting here, so surely somebody has worked this. Okay, so they got 16. So, for these three, what did you get when you did the cosine? 16. So, when these three did your tangent, what did you get? 16. So, see what happens. No matter which one of the three you're using, you're going to come out with the exact same answer, provided you do it correctly. That's the whole point. Is that you're not limited to picking out one anymore. You can pick any of them you want. and then you should all have the same answer. But you can't say, well, I use tangents and that's why my answer is different. No. They all better come out to be the same answer. That's not an excuse. Your answer better be the same as everybody else's answer because they all come out to be the same. So, what I want you to do real quick, I want you to do number 23, but I want you to try it with the fraction this time. Try using the fraction instead of typing in the decimal form. So do 23 real quick. Try typing in the fraction that you have instead of typing in the decimal form. That means right now. So instead of changing your fraction to a decimal and then typing it back in, type in the fraction instead. Yeah, you can pick any of the three that you want. So you can pick sine, cosine, tangent. I don't care which one you use. But instead of changing your fraction to a decimal, I want you to type in the fraction. Yes. And then see if it works.
Well, you said you 22 or 22?
You're doing 23.
Oh, okay.
Hang on, let me see what the answer to 23 is. That's not it. What'd you get? That is correct. If you do it correctly, you should get 46. Are you telling me you didn't get 46?
No, I'm just fine.
So, you may find out it's easier for you to do the fraction
Well, let's see.
instead of changing them to a decimal. It may be easier to type in the fraction because it will work that way. But if you're not getting 46 here on 23, when you type in the fraction form, then I need to know. All you're doing, instead of putting in that 0.5 or the 0.723 or whatever it is as a decimal, you're putting in the actual fraction. 20 over 23, 40 over 42, whatever it is. Put it in the place of the decimal. When you type in that shift, sign to the negative first, all that. Just simply replace the decimal with a fraction. So is everybody okay? Everybody got 46. Like I said, you can do it either way. So if you're more comfortable with the decimal, do the decimal. All that it does is take away the fact that when you get a big long decimal that takes up your entire calculator screen, you don't have to round, you don't have to worry about anything. But you can do decimal or fraction either one and it will be perfectly fine. Okay.
Oh, it's the same thing, just in reverse.
Yes. So 26, this time they've actually given you the decimal. And again, you're looking for the whole number. So now that we've gone through this, you should know what to do. So they've given you 0.2588. They want to know what this is as a whole number. So again, you should know how to do this because we just did it. So what are you going to do?
It's,
Tom stamp
yeah.
to negative 1.
So you're going to do that shift. They've already told you what to use. So they've already told you to use sign.
What's the B for?
That's just taking the place of whatever the whole number is.
Okay.
So where I used X a while ago, they're using B. So you're going to do the shift. You're going to do that sign to the negative first. This time you have to use the decimal because that's what they gave. So again, here you're going to have to use that negative first. So type that in. You should change it to a whole number, and it has to be to the nearest one. And what's it going to come out to be? 15. So we should get 15 degrees when we work this one out. So once you learn how to do it, every time they're looking for a whole number, you've got to use that -1 button. Okay? So every time. So if they give you the decimal, you have to use the decimal. But if it's the ones that we just did with the picture, you can use decimal or the fraction, either one. So any problems with 26? Do we need to do another one of these? Because it's the exact same thing. You should be fine with these. Because it's exactly what we just did. Just hit your shift, sign to the negative first, type in the decimal, and when you hit equals, it should give you your answer. So it shouldn't be a problem again. Now, what we've actually got to spend time on is 31 through 35. These are the ones where you've got to find the missing side. Now, I told you yesterday there are two kinds here.
Would this be the same as or similar to 15 through 20? Cause like you only gave us 2, and then we're still trying to figure out the other side, right?
Now, so your job is to find the missing side. Now, depending on what you're doing, you're either going to be multiplying or you're going to be dividing. So you've got to make sure you set these out right. So I'm going to walk you through several of these because I don't want you getting to the homework and then saying, well, I didn't understand this. This is usually the part that causes the most amount of problems. It's 31 through 35. So make sure you take good notes on this section. Don't sit here and say, yeah, I've got it. Or go to sleep and then wake up and say, I don't have a clue what I'm doing. Because I'm telling you right now, this is going to be the part that's going to mess you up. So let's go ahead and label. So, once again, they've already given you the angle. You're starting right here. So label your sides according to this angle. So what do I have according to this angle of 23 degrees? I have H, which is the X. And 18 is my A. They didn't give me O. If they did, I would have marked it. So, in this problem, what am I going to use that's got A and H? Cosine. So, I'm going to do, just like I did a while ago, the cosine of 23 degrees, because I actually have the angle this time, equals, now make the fraction. What's the fraction? 18 over X. Now, all I did was set it up. cosine of this angle equals adjacent over hypotenuse. Now, can I actually do 18 divided by x? No. I can't solve this problem. There's no way I can solve 18 divided by x. So what I've got to do is I've got to, if I'd stop moving it, it'd probably help. I've got to swap these two. I've got to swap these two. Because I can't do anything with an x, but if I swap these two, then I can actually do the problem. So I'm going to swap them. So now, x is going to be over here by itself. And what's going to be on the bottom? The cosine of 23 degrees. I swapped them.
You have to put the cosine like.
Yes, you have to put that there. So my x came to this side, and the cosine of 23 came to the bottom. I just switched those two. Now, you got to figure this part out. Now, your calculator should do all of that. So now, if you type all that into your calculator, it should do it all. So now, if you hit 18 divided by cosine 23 equals.
I got an error.
Okay.
Oh, I got it.
It shouldn't have an error if you hit it the way you were supposed to.
Mine says domain error.
You said cosine. Oh, here go 19.5544.
Yeah, that's what I got.
Yeah, because now we want it to the nearest 10. So round it to one place after the decimal.
19.6.
So it should come out to be 19.6 when you round it.
You did cosine to the negative 1. That's why I did that.
So if you type it in just like it's written, it should come out to where all you gotta do is round it. So is there anybody who is still not getting it? Okay, we type it in, and 18 divided by cosine 23.
Y'all go
Yeah.
be engaged.
Don't, just type it in exactly the way I got it written there. Don't type it in as a fraction. Okay, is there anybody else? On this part, don't type them in as a fraction, actually hit the divide button. Because that way it will actually do it. Okay, so all you gotta do is actually type it in exactly the way I've got it written here. And it should come out to me where all you gotta do is round it. Okay, so let's try another. I'm gonna try another one that's just like that one. So let's do 33. Then we'll swap and we'll do another one that's different in a minute. Okay, so 33 should be the same kind of problem, hopefully. So we're using the 25 again. So we're right here. So label your sides according to the 25. So what do we have?
20 is opposite.
Okay, 20 is our opposite,
And x is
and x is going to be the a. So that means I have what?
10.
tan. So I'm going to do the tangent of 25 equals
20 over X.
20 over x. So now what did I do a while ago when I had x on the bottom? Because I can't do 20 divided by x. I swap them. Okay? So remember, you gotta swap these two because you can't divide by x. So now my problem says x equals 20 divided by the tan of 25. And that's what you gotta now type into your calculator. So one more time, if you type it in exactly as it is written, 20, hit the divide button, tan 25, and then hit equals. When you get your decimal, you should be ready to round it to one place after the decimal, and you get what?
42.9.
Should be 42.9 if you did it correctly.
Bro, I'm talking something wrong.
Are you hitting it exactly the way I got it written right here?
Do I gotta, I forgot the degree on. Do I gotta take that off?
No, degrees is what we want.
You gotta have the same thing.
Ooh.
You're hitting to the negative first. I don't want negative first.
Oh,
I just
this is
told
good.
you.
If I just hit tangent, you're hitting this one somehow.
Oh,
There's no shift in there anywhere, or second. You're just supposed to hit tangent, then 25 equals. So there's no, remember, the only time you hit the -1 is if you're hunting the whole number. I'm not looking for a whole number. Okay, question. So if x is on the bottom, you gotta swap them and then type it in exactly as I've got it written here. Just like you would say divided. Top divided by the bottom. You what now? You round it to one place after the decimal. The nearest 10. So I don't know what the answer came out to be, but I don't know what was after the decimal point. But I know it rounded to 42.9. So you just gotta make sure you can round these. Okay, so we've got one other one. Now this one we've divided. So there's one other one where you've got to round. Sorry, where you got to multiply. So let's look at the other side of this. So we've got to actually do this part. So let's go back and let's look at number 32. So here's 32. Start off by doing the exact same thing. So go ahead and label everything according to that angle. So here's my angle. So what do I have according to this angle?
52 is O.
X is my O.
18 is 8.
18 is my X. So that means I'm going to be working with,
Sin.
okay, sine. So I've got the sine of 52 degrees equals what?
X over 18.
X over 18. So now this time your X is going to be on the top. On the first two, X was on the bottom. That's why we swapped them. Now, X is on the top. I still can't do X divided by 18. So I'm not going to swap them.
Do you multiply 52 and 18?
Yes. So what I'm going to do is that lovely cross multiplication. It comes in handy on this one. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to multiply these two. Because technically there would be a 1 on the bottom of that sign 52. But 1 times x is not going to affect it. So I'm going to multiply these two now. So again, all you have to do is type it into your calculator just like that. So the sine of 52 times 18 equals, and then when you round it,
It's 14.1.2.
should be 14.2. Now you're not listen, you're not hitting shift, you're not hitting second, you're not hitting anything to the negative first. Just simply hit sine 52 times 18 and then hit the equal button.
I got a negative.
Yeah, you may have to close out a parentheses.
Oh,
It depends. If you have a parentheses that starts, you've got to close it.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Yeah, because they start those and you have to close it.
They think you're doing the sign of them two.
Yeah. So here, you got to make sure you if they give you a parentheses, listen. If they put the 52 in a parentheses, you've got to close it before you put times 18. Otherwise, they're putting it all together. They're not doing them as two separate things. So if they started in one, you've got to close it before you can put the other. That's probably what's happening to several of them. So if you go back and retype it and close the parentheses around the 52, it's probably going to give you the right answer. But it helps if some of you stop talking where I can talk. So if you missed it, go back and retry it by closing the parentheses, and it should end that problem. Because certain calculators do the parentheses and some of them don't. So again, it just depends on what calculator you got. So is that taking care of a couple of those problems? Okay. So what you need to know right now is that if x is on the bottom, you got to swap and you've got to divide. If x is on the top, you're simply going to just multiply the two and you've got your answer. But you've got to be careful about what's being typed into the calculator. If you're supposed to be doing sine and you hit cosine, that's not my fault. And some of you do that. And if you're not supposed to be hitting sine to the negative first and you hit it anyway, well, again, that's not my fault. Negative buttons only get hit when they ask you for a whole number. None of these ask you for whole numbers. So nowhere in here are you hitting anything to the negative first. So be very careful. So any questions? What you got to do is you just got to practice this. You got to go home, you got to try it, you got to come back tomorrow with questions. I can't answer them if you don't try this. And a lot of it's just going to be playing with the calculator, making sure that you can type these in correctly.